I thought I'd do a video on how I use my Turkish spindle. So this is the main little Turkish spindle that I use, and they're pretty standard for what you get when you buy them from a woods craftsman or a maker, like on Etsy or something like that. And some of the 3D printed ones and stuff are like this. You can also get some different ones. I've been experimenting with making ones with these sort of arms for hand carving and stuff like that. This still isn't very good, as you can tell. But you do get other ones with the straight arms like this, and they work fine as well. There's nothing wrong with them either. But I thought I'd show you how I use this one. It's the main one that I use still, because like I said, the others I'm still sort of working on how I like them to be. And these are probably the most common ones. So there's a few little things I just want to point out. The main thing I want to point out is this little depression here, where it gets thinner and then it flares out for this little top piece. That is where you're going to hook in your half hitch when you go to start spinning. So I just really want to point that out while we've got it up nice and close, so you know what I'm talking about when I say to hook your half hitch in there. And really that's the main bit. So the arms, they just go together like this on this one. So any Turkish spindle that has arms that you could pull it off and pull them apart will work just fine, and that's what we're aiming for. So we're going to wind the thread that we make, or the yarn that we make, around here, and then you pull it off, and then you should be able to pull this arm out of the ball and then that arm out of the ball, and you've got a little ball of a little center pull ball that you can use. Okay, so the way we're going to set up the leader is, I start off, you want something that's reasonably long. I use probably 1/2 meter or a bit over. It doesn't really matter, but if it's a bit longer, you can get a bit more stability in your spindle before you even start, which it just makes it easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it down into in through the hole here. Hopefully it should just come through the bottom. Try to use something that's not super fluffy or whatever. You'll find it a bit easier to get it in. Doesn't really matter if the weight of the leader isn't the same as what you're going to spin, as long as it's strong. You want something that's reasonably strong. And yeah, I like this cotton type yarn for a leader. It's just nice and tidy. So we've got it through the hole there. Okay, the end wants to come out the bottom. All right, and most of the yarn wants to come out the top. And then we're just going to get the spindle and put it through the bottom and put that up firm tight in there. And see, it doesn't want to come out. Okay, and then that means that when you're finished, you'll be able to pull this out easily, and you'll be able to see where your center pull is, and if you want to run it that way, but it all comes off easily. Some people, they tie it down here. You can do that. It's fine. No problem. You just need to untie it when you pull it off. This is the same way that I start when I start my yarn, when I start without a leader as well. So I just find it easier. I just hand spin a little bit of fibre out and I can stick it in there and then start spinning. So the first thing that we're going to do is put the rest of this yarn on here. And that's going to be a good way to learn to begin how to wind on anyway, the way we're going to do it later on down the track when we've got a bit of yarn to work with. So what we're going to do is take it under and then over to, and we're going to try and bring it into the center here, under one. So we come under there, over two, and then we're going to go under one, comes up, and then we're going to go over 2, crossing through the center again, under 1, and then over 2, we're going to cross through that center again, under 1, over 2, 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 under 1. Okay, now it's a bit messy in here. We'll talk about how to make that neat a little bit later on. It's fine. At the moment, you just want to wind it on, and you want to try and get it nice and firm up into the center here, because it's going to help these arms to grip onto the spindle just a little bit more. Just going to make everything just a little bit more stable. Okay, now you want to finish with probably a bit over a hand's length of yarn. It's going to depend on how long your spindle is, right? Because if you've got a lot longer spindle, you're going to need to finish with extra yarn. Okay, so what you want to do when we are going to do our half hitch, we're going to go under 1. It's going to be part of our under 1. And instead of going over 2, we're going to go up to here, and we're going to put a half hitch on here and cinch it up. So you can see how the amount of yarn that you need is going to depend on how much you've got, how much length of your spindle you've got. This yarn here that comes from the top of your spindle, I would say it would be good to have that as a length that's close to as wide as your fingers go. That's probably an easy way to measure it. A little bit more, a little bit less is not going to matter, but something like that. You want a reasonable amount, especially when you're starting out, so then you can start your yarn down here. It's going to make it a bit easier for you. You've got a little bit more time to get going before the weight of the spindle is going to be resting solely on your yarn that you're making, or your single that you're making at the time. Okay, so we'll just do that again. So we've done our over 2, under 1. We're going to come straight up and do our half hitch, cinch it up. Okay, now if you don't know how to do a half hitch, they're pretty easy to do. And so basically I wrap it around my finger this way, and then I turn my finger, and you can see that it crosses there in here, and then you just put your spindle in there and pull it off. Okay, we'll go again. You want to come up with the yarn on the outside of your finger across your nail, right? And then you're going to turn your finger so it crosses in the back here. Okay, the loose yarn is going to be on top of the yarn that's coming from the spindle. Okay, and then you're going to put your spindle in there and slide it off. And then, because it's super loose, you can just use your thumb to cinch it up into that little depression there that we talked about before. Okay, and that's super secure. You can see there, pull it pretty tight, it's not going to come off. Now you need to come under here to get that secure. Okay, if you just come straight up here, right, well, it's going to flip around to there anyway, but if you just come straight up on here, you can see that it's going to spin around and loosen until it gets to that next bit where it goes under the spindle anyway. Okay, so you go, so you want to be coming from under the spindle arm to tighten it up to there. Okay, all right. right, so that's got your leader on there, and now we're pretty well ready to start spinning. I'll have to reset up because it's going to be difficult to do that on the table. I'll need to have a bit of drop. So let me set that up and then we can talk about the actual spinning bit. Okay, so we're just going to practice spinning the spindle. What you want to do for your single is spin it clockwise, which if you're right-handed, you're going to set the spindle at the top of your thumb, and it's a bit hard to see, and you're going to roll it back along your thumb, or it might be easier for you to think of pushing your thumb forward. And if you look at the spindle, it's going to turn the same as the hands of a clock. I mean, most people know that, but it's easy to think about. And then if you're struggling to see that, pick a little spot on your spindle that makes it easy, or maybe put a little dot on it. Like this one has this little mark here that I can easily follow, and I'm just going to do a nice slow turn to make sure that I'm turning it the right way and that that dot is moving around the same way as what a clock would. Okay, so you do want to be able to spin it anti-clockwise as well. So you want to spin it clockwise for your single, and then when we go to ply, you're going to want to spin it anti-clockwise. And what I normally do is turn it a tiny bit clockwise. I know that's the right way, and then that I normally spin, and then I flick it the other way. Okay, so when I'm going to ply my yarn, normally I do a little half turn that way and then flick it the other way. It's just what helps my brain to remember and make sure that I'm going the right way. So when I want to do my single, I turn it, I just flick it clockwise, and that's fine. And when I want to do my plying, I turn it slowly the way that I would normally do my single, and then flick it the other way. Just helps my brain, that's how my brain works, but I really struggle with left and right and those sorts of directional things anyway, so having a procedure like that in my brain helps me to work it out. It might not help you, and you can probably just go, I need to spin it clockwise and spin it clockwise. That's fine. I just thought I'd point it out in case it helps someone. So this is the fibre that I'm going to be spinning, and what we want to do is, because we're just starting out as well, you want to just get a little bit, so when you look at the full strand or string of the tops or sliver or whatever it is that you've got, then it's going to be reasonably wide. And if you can spin from this, but I wouldn't do it like that to start off with. For starters, if you sweat heaps and stuff, you'll actually make it felt. It'll take quite a while potentially to spin all that, especially if you're spinning with a little spindle like this one. If you've got a bigger one and you're doing more like an 8-ply yarn, it won't take as long. Maybe you can use a bit more. But if you've got the little spindle, it's probably going to be reasonably thin, and you probably don't want too much. So for me, I think this is an okay amount, but get a feel for it. I mean, you can do less. It doesn't matter. It just means you're going to join it more. Okay, so we'll do this bit. It's where it naturally wants to fall apart. Not fall apart, kind of separate. If you take a close look here, you can kind of see how, see there where it's kind of, you can see where it wants to kind of naturally come apart. These two are a bit loose, so I just loosely together, so I just sort of pull them apart anyway, because when I spin it and as I draft this out, these will kind of naturally probably come apart anyway, and they'll be a bit of a pain to keep together because the fibres are going to naturally draw out of this side and not drag any fibres from this side into it. So then you've got to kind of turn it and twist it to get the fibres from this into that. So while we're learning, we're not going to bother with any of that. If we are spinning along and we end up with a chunk that just doesn't seem to be drawn into our drafting, just pull it off, doesn't matter, and do that bit next. Okay, so don't be too worried about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our piece here. Actually, I'll go the other end because I sort of already pulled on that bit. It'll probably look something like this, and we're just going to pull a little bit out. Don't know if you can see that. Red's not the best color against my, there, that shows up better. Okay, just going to pull a little bit out. Then what we're going to do is get our spindle and our little bit that's left, our little bit of leader. And because we're just starting out, we are going to go reasonably close to the spindle. As you get better and better, you can start off further and further down the leader, and then eventually you probably won't even need a leader. You'll be able to do it without it, but that's okay. So we're going to start quite close so that we have more of a chance to get a good spin and a good bit of thread going before we are putting the entire weight of the spindle on what it is that we're spinning. So those fibres are just laid in line with the leader. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spindle and I am going to spin it clockwise. Okay, and you'll see those fibres will naturally come up and sort of join in like that. Okay, now they're not fully joined in, and they're just gripping onto it a little bit. Okay, so it's not quite the same as when you join two different two lots of this sort of yarn together where you draft them together, because you're not actually drafting anything out of this yarn. So this join here is not as secure as what a normal join will be. Okay, so we need to make sure that we don't let the twist come out of this too much, otherwise it's just going to fall off. Okay, so it's the main thing you need to focus on at the moment. Don't worry about how good your yarn looks or anything like that. We need to keep enough twist in this so that it doesn't fall apart, because that's the thing that's going to drive you the most insane when working with any drop spindle, is if there's not enough twist, it's just going to fall apart and drop on the floor. Okay, so and you can see that if I let this go, it wants to unwind. Okay, it's going in an anti-clockwise direction. All right, so we're going to work on doing small sections at a time so we can keep control of that. Okay, so I'm going to put more twist in again because I let it go. Okay, and there you can see the twist is in there, and I'm going to hold on to the spindle and that will keep that twist in there. And then I'm going to take hold of my yarn and draft my fibre and draft it out a bit, and then I'm going to let go and see how some of that twist went up in there from what we've got there. So there's a bit of twist in there, and I'm just going to load some more twist into my yarn and potential, and then I'm going to pull this out again, hold on to that leader, let it go, see that twist, and if the twist doesn't really go up there, you can pull it a little bit and it'll drag the twist up there. Okay, we're going to go again, and this time that twist is going to go into my fibre, okay, and not just into the leader. All right, so we want to hold on to that twist, okay, keep all that potential there in the back there. Okay, so I'm going to pull, and when I go and pull, it's a little bit thinner than what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let go and let some of that twist into my fibre. Okay, so the twist that we have built up here in the front here helps decide how much is going to draft out. Okay, so I want a bit more to draft out, so I let some of that twist up into here. Okay, Hopefully that's making sense. All right, now I'm going to spin my spindle again. We've got hold of that area before where my fibre is to stop the twist from travelling right up into my fibre, because we want to have a bit of control here. I'm going to pull back, and this time it's drafting nicely for me, so I don't need to let any of that twist in. Now I'm going to let that twist in there. And if I've got heaps of leftover twist in here, like it's feeling like it's very twisted and I could let a little bit more out, I can draft a bit more out, okay? But we don't want to we don't want to lose too much twist in here, okay? Because otherwise it's going to fall apart. Right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit more twist in it, and then I'm going to put it between my two fingers like that, and then I'm going to twirl it onto my hands. Don't worry, I'll show you how to do this again, okay? And then I'm going to park what I've already done onto the bottom of the spindle, just above the arms, and then I need to go under and over and do my half hitch again, okay? Lots of things going on there, so let's try and break it down a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to spin clockwise, and I've built up a lot of potential here. This is far more twisted than what I want it to be. That's fine, because we're going to release it. We're going to draft, and then we're going to hold it onto here, see where it gets a bit thicker. This is the piece that I think is a good thickness for me, and draft it the way I want it to be, and then I'm going to let go and let the twist travel up into here, okay? And then if you want to, if you're not sure, if you pull it just a tiny little bit, you shouldn't feel it pull apart, okay? Then I'm going to release it, okay? Spin it again in that clockwise direction. I'm going to hold on to my spindle so I don't lose it, and then I'm going to hold the start of where the twist meets the fibre, okay? Control that, make sure that twist doesn't travel up in there, and I'm going to draft out what I want, okay? Then I'm going to hold it and let it go up in there, okay? Then I'm going to spin it again, hold on to this to move my hand, draft, okay? I think it's going a little bit too thin, so I'm going to let some of that twist out and draft, okay? All right, now we've made a little bit of yarn again, single, sorry. So I'm going to add a little bit more twist. I'm going to take the thick bit, I'm going to put it between this finger next to my thumb and the other one. The fibre goes to the back of my hand, and I'm going to use that to stop that twist from travelling up into there, and also just hold on to it whilst I wind what I've made onto my hand, okay? So it's across the front of your fingers, into the back of your pinky, across the front to the back of your thumb, diagonally, and then I'm just going to get my finger, and if I let this be not too tight, I can just push that half hitch off there, okay? Then I'm going to take it, you know how we went up under to go up here, we're going to take it out from being under there and turn it in an anti-clockwise, that is. I'm going to put that onto there. Sorry, not anti-clockwise. It is actually anti-clockwise. Well, I told you I struggle with my forwards left and right and that sort of thing. So anyway, so I'm going to wind it onto the bottom there, just above the arms in an anti-clockwise manner. Okay, and then under an arm, I just need a little bit more yarn than that. Under an arm, up. Remember how we do our half hitch? Behind our finger, turn it, and then put it in, put the spindle in there. Okay, now we got a little bit going. Okay, so now what we're working towards, that's just park and drive. That's the easiest way to get it going and keep control of stuff. Okay, next up we'll talk about how to move on from there. Okay, so we got started with our spinning, and we've been doing our park and drive, which is we spin some, hold that potential, draft, let that go up into our fibre, hold it like that, spin, draft, go like that. Okay, and then we grab the fibre in between our fingers, roll it across our little finger and thumb, push that half hitch off, wind it in a anti-clockwise manner, and then do our half hitch, turn our finger up, put it back onto spindle. Okay, and we've just been storing it all just here above the arm. Okay, so what we want to eventually work towards is something a little bit more like this. Okay, so what we're going to do is spin, and then we're actually just going to hold that fibre. We don't need to hold our spindle anymore, and we are going to draft. That stopped because I was talking, but we're going to draft and hold and let that draft run up, let the twist run up, hold, draft, hold, and spin, draft, hold, draft, hold, draft, hold, and then I can see my spindle stopping, so I'm going to reach down. I'm just sliding my hand down like that, down the fibre like that. It takes me straight to my spindle. I spin it and I come back up. So draft, hold, draft, hold, draft, hold, draft, hold. I can feel my spindle stopping, so I'm going to run my fingers down the fibre like that. Draft, hold, draft, hold, draft, hold, and then I'm going to grab hold of my spindle. It's getting, you can't tell, but it's getting pretty close to the floor, so I'm going to grab hold of my spindle. I'm just going to give it one last little spin, and then I'm going to grab the fibre, put it behind the back, and this time I'll have a bit more to wind onto my fingers. Okay, so when we do that, we have it there, we tuck it behind our pinky, and then across our palm, behind our thumb, in a diagonal manner, and then we're going to go back across our palm, behind our pinky, in front, behind, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to have it with not a huge amount of tension here, but a little bit. Okay, and I want to try and avoid these big twisties like that. Sometimes they get a bit, I don't know if you can see that, probably not if I put my fingers in front of it, not very helpful, is it? Big twisties like that, sometimes they can get a bit caught up. Okay, but we want it to be a little bit, not be super tight there, so then I can run my finger up and flip that half hitch off. I'm going to pull it out from under there, under the arm, and I'm going to turn it onto my spindle in a clockwise direction. Now I just push it up against my belly. There's plenty there to push against, for me anyway. Push it against my belly, and I just turn it in my hands like that. And then I'm just going to slowly let some of that out. Turn my spindle till it comes in. Slowly let some more out. Okay, and then I'm going to have a reasonable amount. I'm going to take it, put it under one of the arms, do my half hitch, turn my finger, and put it on there like that. Okay, now at the moment it's spinning anti-clockwise, right? So you want to make sure you don't let that happen too much. One of the biggest problems with these spindles is, if you're not paying attention, is that when they slow down and stop when you're drafting, they will then turn back the other way, which means you'll lose the twist that you have in your make, and then it'll just fall off. Okay, so it's really important that you pay attention to that. So it's more important to just try and get into that process than to focus on trying to reach the floor. Okay, so if it means that mentally you're just not up to being able to spin and draft and pay attention to your spindle at the same time, then just do smaller amounts. Okay, don't do it all the way to the floor until you will get there. You will get used to it, and you'll feel it in your peripheral. You feel your spindle slowing down more than you will actually see it, because you don't really want to be looking at that. You want to be looking up here where you're drafting, okay, so you can pay attention to what your single is looking like, because then that's how you keep it even, right? And I mean, eventually then you probably won't even be really looking at your single. You might be like looking at the scenery or something as you're going along. Okay, so something else that I just want to let you know, that what I'm doing as well is, when I draft this out and then I'm going to let it go, what I'm actually doing is letting it run down my fingers. Okay, just puts a little bit of extra twist. It like helps the twist run up the thing a little bit faster. Okay, so that then it's less, it just helps stop it from falling off. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of yarn on there, single, sorry. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to spin some more of this, so then we have plenty to do the plying, which we're going to use chain ply. So let's just get this bit spun. You know, if you've watched my support spindle video, you'll know that spinning can be hard, and it's going to take a bit of practice to get this to this sort of fluency. Don't be hard on yourself. It's going to just take a little bit of persistence, and then before you know it, you'll be able to spin as much as you like, and it'll be a lot easier. I just realized there's something else that we should probably go through, which is just joining your fibre in. So I will accidentally break my fibre here, and let's join it back in. So I am just going to not put enough twist in this, and that's really hard to do because I just subconsciously spun my spindle, but that's okay. So I'm just not going to put enough twist in here, and I'm not going to let it go because I hate dropping my spindle. That's one thing I should say, is when you're learning to use your spindle, try and do that on carpet because it's more friendly for your spindle. And I have just sanded the bottom of mine so it's nice and smooth now after having dropped it a few times. So pretty much what will happen is it'll really just be like this. It's just going to come away. It'll drop through your hands, okay? And that's fine. So if you have a quick look at this, you'll notice that it's not super twisted. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let that twist go out a little bit more. Okay, I'm conscious of the fact that this is de-spinning itself in my hand. So what I should probably do is just grab hold of that. Okay, so you can see there, it's quite light and fluffy. It's not like this bit here, which is super twisted, okay? We want it to stay light and fluffy, the bit that we are going to draft back into our fibre, because then it's more likely to get intertwined with the fibres, the new fibres in this bit that we have over here. Otherwise, it'll look quite like what it did when we drafted onto the leader, and like I said, that's nowhere near as secure. Okay, so what we want to do is generally when that happens, you end up with like a little nub here, okay, where the fibre just finally broke. So I'm going to take that and hold it, a little bit of drafted fibre, against the bit that is twisted, and I'm going to draft it a tiny bit. Okay, so you can see there, that bit at the top is the bit that I've drafted, and the other bit underneath is the bit that's twisted. Okay, and I'm going to put a little bit of twist in that, which should join it together. Okay, and if you want to, if it seems super fluffy or it's not really going together, you can give it a little twirl in your fingers if you want. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that end. Oops, this is the end that came off. I'm going to take that end and I'm going to hold it along with my other fibre. Okay, and then because it's loose, I can draft it as well, and I can draft them both. Okay, and then see, you can hardly even see it. I can feel it still in there, but we are going to draft them both together. Okay, and then you get a bit of a cleaner join. It's more likely that your fibres are going to twist together, some from the broken bit of single, and some from your little nub of fibre you've got in your hand. Okay, and it'll be more secure that way. All right, so you need to draft them both. So if you don't have enough length in that bit that's broken off, let the twist out of some of your single, so you do have a reasonable amount of length. Okay, you want to try and have at least a finger, at least this finger length's worth. Okay, but the more you have, the more secure you're going to get. Okay, so if you're really struggling with it, just give yourself a bit extra. Okay, and then if you're super struggling with it and it's really frustrating, you put some more twist in the whole thing, put it between your fingers, wind it on, and then put it onto your spindle. Okay, just make it short, as in do your join, get a little bit of pad space, and then put it on your spindle. That's what I meant by short, rather than just going, well, that's it. I'm not sure that really made sense what I said there, but anyway, that's what I meant, was just do the join, put it on your spindle. Okay, if you're really struggling with trying to keep it together. All right, and then we are just going to keep spinning here, and this isn't super duper obvious, but this is what I was talking about. Sometimes, see, when I draft here, it's coming just out of the bottom and not out of the top. And then what I normally do when that happens is I will turn my fibre a bit and try and pick up those pieces, some of that when I draft, and then hopefully it'll come together. Sometimes what happens with, especially when you've got a really big piece, is that just gets worse and worse, and then you're like, oh my god, I've got this big bit on the other side that just isn't drafting in. Just pull the whole bit off, and it's okay. Join it later. All right, so don't be too stressed about it, especially when you're learning and you're not trying to do any special color combination or anything like that. Okay, so we're not far off finishing this bit here, and see, eventually what you can do is, as you get better and better, you'll just sort of draft and drop, draft and drop. Okay, so that's what you're working towards, but it'll probably take you a while to get there. Don't stress. Okay, do not stress. That is the worst thing you can do when it comes to spinning. And if you're feeling super stressed out, you should just stop and have a cup of tea. Maybe not coffee. I'm not sure. I don't drink coffee, so don't drink anything that's going to elevate your stress levels. Be calm. Okay? So, not sure there's much else to talk about. Really what you need to do is practice for this bit. If you've done spinning before, you'll see a lot of things in common with what you've done before. It's great. One spinning method definitely informs the next. Once you learn how to draft and you get a feel for what you want to see, you know, you get a feel for how much drafted, what a certain amount of drafted fibre is going to look like when you've put twist in it. So then you get a feel for, you know, the sort of thickness of yarn that you're going for, and all that sort of jazz. So those bits are the same. Okay, so we're just getting towards the end of this bit here. Just going to put back onto my hand. So yeah, at the moment, the main thing I would think is don't worry about putting too much twist in. Be more concerned with not having enough. Okay, because that's when it's going to fall off or break. What else can I say? There's some other things that are worth noting. So when you first start spinning, especially with these little spindles, the closer this thread here is to the center of the spindle, the more wibbly wobbly or less stable your spindle might spin. Okay, can you see how it's sort of, it's going to do a little bit more of that. That's fine, it doesn't matter. It's just going to make it a little bit more awkward. And then you'll reach a point where, as you build up your turtle, the angle here will become more obtuse, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it'll become wider, less steep, and then your spinning will stabilize with your spindle, and then you'll reach a certain point where you'll be like, oh my god, what am I doing wrong? Because now I just keep dropping my spindle all the time. And that will probably be the point where your spindle is full and it's reached the capacity of weight capacity of how much yarn you can put on it. Okay, so these guys, they don't have much capacity. What I'll do is I'll show you later some yarn that I've spun with it. Okay, so I've done the final make for this little stub, and at the bottom, all I've got left at the end, this is all I've got left, right? So I want to let it be what am I trying to say? I want to let it to gradually fade out like this. Okay, so that's fine, because then when I join my next piece on, these gradually faded out bit will stand out less. Okay, makes more sense when you join it on, I think, that what I'm trying to say, but it'll be less bulky. It'll make your join less bulky if this slowly fades out and then you put a piece on which basically slowly fades in, and then you get the full thickness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this end and I'm going to take my middle finger. I'm going to wrap it around my middle finger. Now I'm going away from my body. Okay. So from the front to the back. I'm not sure I'm really explaining that very well. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it around my finger quite a bit, okay? Because this is the bit that I'm going to have left over. I need a certain amount of single left over to continue to spin on with after I have plied the rest of this yarn that's on here, okay? So put quite a bit on there, that's okay, all right? Don't do it so tight that your finger falls off. I have already done it a bit tight. My fingers started to go pink. Please don't lose your finger, okay? Now, we're going to have that as our securing point instead of putting it between our fingers like we have been before. That really only works when you've got the big fibre on the other side, because that big fibre helps give the resistance to hold it in there. So I've twisted it around on my finger, and then we're going to do the same thing, except we are going to just take it in between these two fingers here. This one, and oh, come on, brain. Yeah, this one and this one, right? You see that there? I'm going to take it around the front of that finger and down behind my pinky. And then we're going to go again to the back of the thumb, across the front, across the palm to the back of the pinky. Okay, across the front of the pinky, back of the thumb. Okay, in that figure 8 type fashion. And all I'm doing is I'm just pressing my spindle into my belly again, and I'm just holding it loosely, super loose. Okay, and I'm just letting it spin as it winds off. This is something that takes a bit of practice to get fast at as well, but you'll get there. Don't go any faster than what you've got the capacity to do it. It's not a competition, but you'll get faster eventually, okay? And then we're going to reach that prep where our leader is. What we're going to do is we're just going to pull it gently, and hopefully it'll just slide off. If it doesn't, it'll break. The world's not going to end, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our leader and we are going to tie it so there is a loop in the end. Now, if you want to, you can do this originally and draft onto it with the loop on the end, but I don't like to do it that way. I like to do the loop after, okay? Now, you will have lost some of your twist in here, but that's okay, because if you've got plenty of twist in it, when you go to pull it and you hold it off here, that twist will just even out, okay? And it should rescue the end bit from falling off. Okay, so we've tied the loop on the end of our leader, okay? Just however you make a loop, doesn't really matter. Then we are going to take the very end of our single. We're going to take the end of our single and we are going to hold it in our thumb, and then we're going to make a loop and pull it through and sit it on our little finger, okay? So that's just a little loop I made in it, pulled it through this blue one and sat it on my finger, okay? Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that loop and take the excess, the end of the spindle, the end of the single, and hold it up there, okay? So we got our little loop, boop, and I'm going to put a little bit of anti-clockwise twist in this, okay? So it comes together and kind of locks in down here a little bit, okay? So remember what I said, what I normally do is turn it slowly the wrong way and then twist it, okay? And can you see there how it's locked in there now, okay? So now we're ready to start chain plying. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the loop, put it in our other hand. We're going to open it with our 2 fingers, reach through it, grab hold of the single and pull it through, okay? Then we've got our big loop. We're going to reach through the loop, grab our single and pull it through, okay? Once again, we are going to reach through, grab our single, pull it through, okay? And then what I'm going to do is take that big loop and sit it on my little finger like that, all right? Now you don't need to worry so hugely about this spinning the wrong way once it finishes spinning, because it's not going to just fall apart like a single will, okay? So it's kind of a little bit more secure now. So I'm going to, I turn it a little bit clockwise and then anti-clockwise, and I'm just going to let it go. I'm just going to let that twist travel up in there. Okay, and then I can tell when it's got enough twist, because when I do this, if you can see there, see how it's twisting together? Could do with a little bit more twist in it, okay? And I'll show you what I mean. a little bit more twist in it. See how it doesn't want to twist together anymore? That's probably good. Now I'm just going to wind it. I'm just going to take it, wind it onto my fingers. Okay. And then undo my half hitch. We're going to wind it back onto the bottom of the spindle again. Okay. Until I get a reasonable amount that I can easily do my half hitch again. Okay. Now I've got that little loop, it's on my little finger. I'm going to hold it apart with these two fingers, or whatever fingers you find comfortable. Reach in, grab that single. Oops, reach in, grab that single and let it come off my fingers and pull through. It doesn't matter how long these loops are, so if it feels like just then, like just here, it's got a little bit stuck, just pull it through again as another loop, okay? But normally and potentially as it gets heavier, it will just pull through. The weight of the spindle will pull it through. Now it's got a little bit stuck here, so I'm just going to give it a little, tug, okay? Little tug, gentle, gentle. Okay, and I've decided that's going to be enough. It's getting close to my floor, so I hook the loop onto my little finger, and let any of the slack single should just pull out into that loop, and then I'm going to turn it anti-clockwise again. Okay, check it. Could use a little bit more. There, that's enough. Okay, and you get a feel for it. You won't have to check it all the time. You get a feel for when it's enough. Alright, we're going to wind it back onto the spindle again. Okay, and then I just need just enough so I can easily do my half hitch. We're going to pull off this loop. I'm going to reach through that loop for my single and pull it through. Now I've got my big loop. Reach through, pull it through, and then this last one, I'm going to take it and sit it on top of my finger with all my wound on bit of yarn, okay? And then I'm going to spin it anti-clockwise. See what I think? No, I could use a little bit more. It's still twisting. That's not too bad. All right, and then I'm going to wind it onto my fingers. Now what I'm going to do is take that half hitch off and wind it, all that excess that's on the bottom there, off, and we are going to wind it on nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to reset for that because it'll be easier if I do it sat down to show you. Okay, so now what we're going to do is wind it on, which is kind of like the fun part, especially when you're doing multicolors, because then it looks really nice. So I'm just going to wind it back to where it was under, and we're going to use the same process, right, over 2 under 1, but when we get to the new color it's going to be easy to show, so I'll wait until we get to there. What we're going to do is, to make it neat, you want to lay one strand next to the next strand, so I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to start again in the center, so I'm going to go under and over 2, and see I've got it right up close to the spindle there, okay? And then I want to try and bring it in to this other arm, this perpendicular arm, as close as I can, and under and up, and then as close as I can again to the spindle, and then under and up, over the 2, under and up, over the 2, under and up, and then you can see here that we are going to be in line with one that we've already done, right? The side we've already done. So what we want to do is we want to try and lay it right next to the other one, okay? I'm going to go under 1, over 2, and from now on it'll always be laying next to another one, okay? Don't worry if it's not perfect, and at the beginning it kind of is a bit messy. Every layer that you do is going to go on top of the next one, okay? So don't be too worried about it, especially since this yarn that I've spun is very different to the yarn of the leader, so it's going to be bobbly and stuff, okay? So we're just going to try and get it as close as we can, and put it on. And then we just let some more out, and because this is a yarn now instead of just a single, it's super stable. If you were to let it all out, it wouldn't matter. It's just gonna, see, it's just gonna like fall onto the thing, right? So I wouldn't do that though, because you've got to you'll probably end up working up to doing quite a bit at a time, and it's still going to tangle just like normal yarn tangles. Okay, so I'm struggling a bit to try and get this to work properly with the yarn underneath it. It's fine. The next layer will be more even, and then it'll be more even, and it'll just look good. If you just keep trying to get your each strand next to the one next to it as best as you can, then it is going to look really pretty. Okay, so yeah, like I said, don't be too stressed about this first layer. Okay, under 1 over 2, under 1 over 2. Okay, and start to look something like this. Okay, we'll just keep laying that strand next to the next one. And then what you want to do when you do this is you want to keep doing that until it sort of doesn't want to sit here anymore. You'll reach a point where it kind of wants to pop off there. Okay, and then you should start a new layer. To start a new layer, let's say we needed to now, to start a new layer, all we're going to do is we're going to go under 1 over 2, but we're going to bring it right up to that spindle again. Okay, start again afresh up there. Okay, but what you really want to do is you want to try and to get a stable spin out of your spindle, you want to try and make it wider than what it is tall. Okay, you want a turtle that kind of goes out like this rather than a turtle that goes up like this. Okay, you would just get a much more stable spin that way as more weight goes out towards the edges of the arms. Okay, so I've reached this point where I'm getting towards the end here. I could probably do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it and store this little bit down here until this loop wants to sort of run into one of these arms, and I'm going to slip that. Come now. Let's get that little loop back. Don't panic if you drop your loop. It's not going to just disappear. It might be a little bit finicky, but you can pull it out. Okay, I'm just going to slip that loop over there. And then I want to make sure I've got enough of this single so I can put a little bit of it down there. Okay, because that will just make this little lump here a little bit more stable, stop it from sliding up. You want to do it reasonably firmly until you reach that point where you've got sort of good length to go under and over, do your half hitch and start spinning again.